So welcome officially to the QuestBridge virtual panel. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. If you are just joining us, my name is Amelia. I am joined by 3 colleagues. We'll do introductions. 2 you will not see on camera. Brittany and Karen are off camera. They will be helping to answer any of your questions that you have. You can submit through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll also be answering some questions live as well. We're joined by 4 current students who were QuestBridge scholars here on campus. Again, my name is Amelia Conlon. I'm Assistant Director of Admission here at Princeton. I've been here just for about 2 years now, and I'm really excited to be working with you guys, and I'm joined by my colleague.
Hi everyone, my name is Ricky Kenton. I'm an admission officer here at Princeton. Like my colleague Amelia already said, we're really excited to have you guys join us today. Please make sure to type any questions you may have in that Q&A box. We just really want this to be an awesome opportunity for you all. So I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. So if Josiah, you could start, that would be really great.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Josiah Gowker. I'm a first year at Princeton University. I live in Whitman Residential College. I'm from Yucca Valley, California. Some of the things I do on campus are Princeton Club Archery. I fire the bow and arrow. And then I'm also a SIFP fellow. It's the Scholar Institute Fellows program. It's for low-income students, and we do like little support groups and mentorship activities and stuff like that.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Bolin. I'm a sophomore in the class of 2021 here at Princeton. I live in Forbes Residential College. I'm from Kings Mountain, North Carolina. And a couple of the things that I do on campus, one, I'm an Orange Key tour guide, so I lead tours on campus for prospective students. And I also work for Matriculate, the Princeton chapter of Matriculate, which is an opportunity to do virtual advising for high school students working on college applications.
My name is Maricela. I'm a junior. I'm in the chemistry department. I'm from Buffalo, New York. And some of the things that I do on campus are I have 2 work-study jobs. I also used to play on the Club Ultimate Frisbee team. And next semester, I'm going to be, as Josiah mentioned, a SIFP head fellow to help advise and mentor low-income students. And I used to live in Forbes Residential College, but now I'm an upperclassman, so I live in upperclassman housing.
Hey everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm in the class of 2020. I'm a computer science major in the engineering school. I lived in Houston, Texas the 9 years leading up to Princeton, but I lived in Columbia before that. I used to live in Wilson College, but now as an upperclassman, I choose to live in upperclassman housing. Some of the things that I do on campus are I'm the president of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers chapter, which involves managing relationships between employers and students on campus. And I'm the president of Quadrangle Club, one of the 11 eating clubs, which are Princeton's version of Greek life on campus.
Great. So thank you so much for giving that those wonderful introductions. We're really sort of excited to jump right into it. So we'd love to talk a little bit about academics at Princeton. So if you could just share your experiences, whether that's in lectures or what we call precepts, and maybe give an idea of what a precept is, that would be really helpful. Are there any professors that really stuck out to you? Things along those lines, I think, is a good sort of starting point.
Yeah, so I could speak a little bit to this one, I think. For one class that I took actually last year during my freshman spring, I took a course about linguistics, which was one that I had never really had any kind of introduction to before, and I mostly took it because I wanted to fulfill a requirement, like a general education requirement. We call them distribution requirements. So that's what led me to that course. I had no prior knowledge of it, and what I was actually able to do, it was a big lecture. It was, you know, at least 150, 200 students. But what I was actually able to do was have one-on-one discussions with my professor, because my professor was also my preceptor. So the precept program is what Princeton does to help with those bigger lectures. So we have lectures with lots of students are kind of balanced out by a weekly precept. So you would have 2 lectures a week, and then you'd also have a precept, which is just a smaller group of students going back over the same material. And I got lucky because often those same professors who teach the course will at least teach one precept. So I was in the linguistics precept with a linguistics professor who does linguistics research, And she spent that time to really teach me the basics, and I had a great time with my small precept learning about it. So I think that was one of the first times that I felt super, super like accessible. Like I thought my professor was really accessible, and I was able to get really into that subject when I didn't really think that I could.
Another thing that I would add about the professors is you just don't realize the quality of the professors that we have at Princeton until you really go to other schools and you start talking to people. One of the experiences I had is I was learning in computer science. It was an introductory course taught by Kevin Wayne. And I was talking to some friends from other schools, and they started talking to me like, oh, wait, you know Kevin Wayne? And I was like, yeah, why? Like, well, he like does all the textbooks for computer science courses across the United States. So it just felt like, oh yeah, I see him like every Monday and Wednesday. He's not that like big in my life, but they're actually just really high quality professors.
Great. So can one of you talk about the accessibility that you guys have in terms of getting a hold of whether that be office hours or other ways that you are able to interact with your professors in a really kind of like quality way?
So one unique thing that Princeton offers, especially for freshman students, are freshman seminars. So it's kind of like a smaller class size. It's about 12 students, and it's open only to freshmen, and they offer it in the fall and the spring. And it's on a variety of topics. So I took one in bioethics with actually the previous president of Princeton, Harold Shapiro. And so obviously that's kind of intimidating, but it was really cool because you get to know them one-on-one kind of, and it's a really small class size. So then you, for all your papers and stuff, you kind of meet with them in their office, and they go through all of your arguments and everything, and you also get to know them, like what they did before Princeton as president and stuff. So it was really cool to hear what kind of life they had and get to know them on a personal level as well, beyond the classroom. So.
Great. So I think this has all been really helpful in sort of getting an idea of what that transition to Princeton could be like in terms of academics, and sort of getting some insight. For those of you who are, let's say, more advanced in their Princeton career, I'd love to hear about maybe what your junior projects are, and if you could give us some idea of what a junior project is / a senior thesis, it would be really helpful, I think, for students to kind of get a gist of what that's like.
So I guess I'm a junior, as I mentioned, in the chemistry department. So all juniors are basically it depends on your department, but in many departments they require that you do a junior paper. So it's kind of an introduction to what is called the senior thesis, and all Princeton students, except for I think some BSE departments, which is engineering school, are required to do a senior thesis, which is like your own research project. And juniors are kind of introduced to that with the junior paper. So for chemistry, it's kind of more research focused. We actually get assigned a paper from a lab that we're thinking about joining for our senior thesis research. So I had to turn that in a couple weeks ago. And I read one of the papers from a lab that I'm interested in joining next semester, and then you write a small critique on that paper, and it kind of varies on the department. But it's basically to introduce you to the idea of like scientific thinking and independent work.
And just to add a bit about the senior thesis in engineering, pretty much every major at Princeton requires a student does some form of a thesis. I'm in computer science, and it is the only major at Princeton in the engineering school that will not complete a thesis. But what we will do is we'll complete some form of independent work, which means you either work with a professor and they define kind of loosely what your project's going to be, or you take an independent work seminar offered by the Department of Computer Science, which is taught by a professor with a small group of students, in which you'll have your own project, you'll have your own hours on how to work on it, and at the end you'll present it at a panel.
And I know that Caitlin and Josiah are both much more of our humanities interested students. And Josiah, we were talking earlier and you said that you were really interested in your writing seminar. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what that was and especially your experience so far as underclassmen in the humanities departments at Princeton?
Yeah, so the writing seminar, basically every freshman is going to go through one either in the fall or the spring. And basically what it does is it teaches you the skills of argument that are necessary for other classes that you might take, as well as later on it'll be useful for the junior paper or the junior project and your senior thesis. So essentially, I was very interested in choosing a writing seminar that spoke to my interests, and luckily I was able to get into one that spoke to my interests. So mine is called American Descent. And it's kind of been my own method of performing quality research as a freshman. So it's kind of also informed my my major choices in the future, since we won't declare until our sophomore spring. So I've been able to do a lot of sociological research about race or ethnicity and all of these different things that I've kind of had an interest in looking at since I was in high school. But now I've got the access to like the library. I checked out, I think, about 11 books for one research paper. And yeah, it felt like I was doing something genuine and contributing to a scholarly conversation.
I also think I can speak to that a little bit as well. So kind of to give a little bit of specifics, I think. So I took a writing seminar as well, freshman year, just like many do, all do. That's the one course that every Princeton student takes, regardless of major or any other affiliation on campus. So it's kind of the great equalizer. And it was really comforting to me knowing that coming into the university, I would have a course with everyone, no matter what kind of high school they came from, all working together and getting on that level playing field. So it made me feel pretty good, prepared, I think, to tackle the kind of daunting JP or junior paper, senior thesis kind of thing. So for me, my writing seminar was called The Big Apple. So it was about New York City. So in exploring New York City, that was kind of what all of our papers were based around. And for your final paper, you kind of get to pick the topic. So what my paper was about food experience in New York City, specifically this one restaurant called Black Tap, and it's these giant viral milkshakes that I think a lot of people have seen online. So I actually studied those using like a sociological review of Yelp.com and looking at how their comments changed from the burgers and the taste before to after it went viral, about like how it changed to like look and presentation and social media. So it's kind of a little bit of specifics about a freshman informed like glimpse into research.
Great. So we just received one of our first questions, and I think this is maybe a little close to home right now, but the question is, what is reading period / Dean's Date, and did you all get the free beanies?
Okay, so yes, so this is my first reading period / Dean's Date. I'm very grateful that Dean's Date is finally completed. So basically what reading period is, it's an opportunity for you to, catch up on readings or review materials before we have finals, because our finals come after the winter break. So it's been great for me to be able to go back and look at the notes that I've taken, kind of target specific areas that I need during reading period, as well as I've been able to do my assignments I have to do for Dean's Date, because Dean's Date is like the final deadline for all the written work that you might have in any classes. So for my writing seminar, I had a Dean's Date assignment that was due yesterday at 5. And that's another time where you kind of know that everyone is stressing out together. You're all in it together. So it's kind of a cool experience in that way.
And just in terms, though, you mentioned, though, there might be some stress around Dean's Date, though, but hopefully, though, there are some other supports that you can utilize, whether they be formal or informal, to kind of help you have a less stressful Dean's Date?
Yeah. So one of the things that we have are like the McGraw tutoring sessions. And McGraw is kind of just a place that you can get academic support if you need it. Additionally, there's the Writing Center. This is especially helpful for freshmen who are in writing seminars. They will provide you individualized support with whatever you're writing, and they can help you at any point throughout the process. So there's a lot of different ways to alleviate the stresses that might come around an intense day like Dean's Day.
Perhaps our upperclassmen have some advice as well for Dean's Date?
Yeah, so as Josiah mentioned, there's Dean's Date. It's kind of like a big day for Princeton students, but there's so much that's going on also outside of classes. you're not actually taking any classes during reading periods, so you have all of the time to kind of manage yourself, which is hard to get used to at first, but they also have so many review sessions for all your classes. There's study breaks pretty much every night with free food, like RCAs in your residential colleges. Basically, they'll try and make sure that you're fed, whether you're staying up and writing papers or whatever. But yeah, it's a time where you get to prepare for your papers and yeah.
Great. So now that we've sort of answered that first question, we have received another question. So the question is, how do certificate programs affect majors? And maybe for Daniel, on top of the additional courses, what is it possible to, get an engineering, to get an additional certificate, essentially, is the question.
Yeah, so certificates at Princeton are kind of like minors at other schools, but they're different in that for certificates, you not only have to take the courses, but you also have to do some sort of independent work to sort of like capstone the project and basically make sure that you earn the certificate, that you've gone beyond just taking the courses. And it's definitely possible. I've chosen not to do it myself, but many of my friends in engineering have chosen engineering-specific certificates. Like I know there's some in material science and other things like that. I know other friends who are also engineering, but choosing certificates in Latin American studies or a specific language certificate, and it's definitely doable. You just have to like work with your advisors on how to structure your academic curriculum such that you can take the courses that you need and also not overwhelm yourself.
Great. We also have another question, and it's around club sports. It's kind of like, so what exactly is the time commitment for club sports? I think this is also, we can talk about time commitments for any of our other non-academic commitments that we have at Princeton, because, we have other ways other than academics. Our students certainly are involved outside of the classroom in a variety of ways as well. I know that Josiah is on the archery squad, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so in my experience, the club archery is it's a very chill environment. Like they don't expect you necessarily to have a ton of archery experience. Of course, there are like tryouts, and they kind of go through a self-sustaining process of choosing each person as they join the team. And with regards to the time commitment, it's not necessarily that much. It's basically whatever you want to put into it. For me, I can. So for example, there are practices that we have every week, and it's kind of catered to whatever time constraints you might have. And then we also have trips to the archery range that's relatively close to campus, where you might carpool or Uber pool with other people to the archery range. And then we also have competitions throughout the year. But the competitions are typically on like a weekend. It's probably a quiet weekend. I think we have like 6 different competitions this year. We already competed in one. It was the Ivy League tournament. And like, I didn't necessarily perform that well in the tournament, but it was still a great experience because even as, it's a club sport, but we still are like representing Princeton against like the other Ivy Leagues. So it's definitely a great sense of community as well, being part of the club archery team.
I think I could also speak a little bit to like sense of community with extracurricular commitments, because I think, especially for me, before actually coming to college, I was nervous about balancing homework, classwork with the things that I just wanted to be involved with on campus. And I think, at least for me, I found that just choosing to be involved in things where I can find that kind of community, like you said with archery, just trying to put that sense of community and friendship along with the commitments you choose to join is really important. So then it fits more into your schedule because you're also taking a break from working on class to join the people that you like to do something you like together. So I think it fits more into your schedule that way, and it's a little bit easier to balance when you like what you're committing to. And I've also found that for me, the different clubs and organizations and activities I've joined, it's really nice because everyone understands that here everyone's time is valuable, I think, generally. And so, I've been very upfront at the beginning, like, this is how many hours a week we would expect you to do this. Does that seem okay with you? Like, everyone knows how busy everyone is. So we have a way of fitting it into each other, I think, on the campus.
Great. So we just received another question, and I think this is good to kind of talk about in regards to balancing everything. So the question is it possible to do research, whether that's science in general or another area, with professors your freshman year? Is the process to apply for these research opportunities competitive? Could you maybe walk us through those that kind of process?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. Actually, the summer after my freshman year, I did this program called Rematch, and it's specifically for underclassmen interested in research. So I joined a chemistry lab, and at the time I didn't know that I wanted to be a chemistry major. And then you also get matched with a grad student mentor, and you write a proposal together, and this happens during the school year, during your freshman year, or you could also do it after your sophomore year. And you kind of join them on their research, and then it's also, you kind of take it on your own. So they teach you everything in the lab, and then you spend all summer with them. But it's also possible to join the lab during the year, and I have some friends who do that. You have to just manage your time with it, and there's a lot of students who will join a lab as underclassmen and stay in that lab through senior thesis so that you can kind of have a more meaningful project and a more meaningful connection with the lab. You basically just, you'll go to class in the morning and then you'll go and work in the lab at night. Yeah, so it's definitely possible to manage both of those things, both in academics like humanities, those kinds of things, and also in science, in labs, wet labs, like all kinds of things.
Great. So we had another question. So definitely, please, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom. Type those in, and we'll be able to get those answered by our current students or by our staff. We do have another question, kind of about preparation. And I know, Josiah, you were a member of our CIFP program. So if you can kind of talk about kind of ways that you felt you were prepared for the academic rigor and the expectations coming from your high school and moving into your first year at Princeton. And I know that all of you have great experiences around that, but why don't we start with Josiah?
Okay, so one of the things that I did, and it's kind of like in connection to the CIFP program, is called FSI. It's the Freshman Scholars Institute. I did the online version. It's called like FSI2U. But in essence, what they do is they kind of put you, if you're on campus, then you'll have 2 classes or 2 full classes that you will, go through the motions of an entire, or of a Princeton education. For me, it was different in that I wasn't on campus, but I was still getting the information from like the writing class that everyone goes through. At the beginning, my writing was not necessarily up to par, I don't think, with the rigor or what Princeton wants out of me. But essentially what I was able to do through the FSI2U program was that I had like a preceptor who I worked with over the summer. We wrote, I think, like 3 different papers, and it was kind of a lot of what we would go through later on in writing seminar. So it was kind of a unique way to get me ready for a writing seminar as well. Just like the language that would be used, as well as different strategies when it comes to writing academic papers, because it's a hard task to kind of bring together a bunch of sources and make an argument that's your own. And FSI was able to help me with that. And then continuing on to my freshman year, I've been a CIFP fellow, through that, I've had a mentor who's an upperclassman who's kind of gone through the different academic challenges that I'm encountering now, as well as challenges outside of the classroom with regards to like internships or just, other extra, managing your time, extracurriculars. So there's definitely a lot for me as like a low-income student, especially, to get used to what life is like here at Princeton, because it can be very fast-paced and challenging.
Yeah, and I think as a sophomore, I can speak to kind of just like the logical extension of that just into another year. I've had very similar experiences with the CIFP program as well, but I think I want to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities and advising available in the residential college programs. So no matter where you come in at the university, whichever residential college you get randomly sorted into, though we have very strong affiliations with our residential college, it was random and very arbitrary. But I say all that to say Forbes is the best. Each residential college has actually a lot of different resources available. And I think for me, coming in during my first year, that was kind of where I kind of moved toward getting those that help. So one person would be your director of studies, who is someone who works in your office. So they're very close to you as well. They're very easily accessible. You don't have to walk very far. There's one in every residential college, and they get to know you really well because they're only dealing with, 1/6 of your class. So they kind of get a little bit more in touch with the people that surround them. And they really come through, especially during times like now, during reading period and Dean's Day. That is the director of studies' time to shine. They'll send you those helpful emails that remind you of dates, that you can come see them in different office hours and things like that. And I've had really meaningful conversations with my director of studies just about, logical ways to get through a class experience. Like, I need help managing readings and things like that. And so things that you would think students have to figure out on their own, I've actually found those resources to be really helpful to just allow me the opportunity to get more comfortable with what Princeton's asking of.
Great. So
can I add to that actually? Because not to keep it over here or anything, but the residential college is actually a place of a lot of helpful resources. For example, we have our RCA, which is our residential college advisor. I've been able to turn to my RCA for anything with regards to classes, but also if I'm having a problem in my social life, she's there to give me advice. She's a senior, so she's been being formed by the Princeton experience. In addition, I have a peer academic advisor who typically is able to give me advice on which classes might be they have easier classes here at Princeton, which translates to considerably hard, but they typically are able to give advice as to which classes might go best if you're doing a fifth class, which you have to do once during your freshman and sophomore year, from my experience, at least once. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But yeah, so the RCA relationship with the Z's, which is the advisees, has been very important to me, in that I'm able to have a built-in mentor who lives down the hall from me, and that's really cool.
that's amazing to hear, and we're really glad to hear that you're continually supported here at Princeton. For Daniel and Maricela, we received a question that I think you both would be able to answer very well. Did everyone sort of know or have a general idea of what they wanted to major in or concentrate in? And if not, how did you figure out how to go about, what the right concentration was for you? Has anyone changed majors? And if so, what's that like?
So I'm kind of an exception, I think, because I've known what I wanted to major in since sophomore year of high school. So it was very easy for me to know that I wanted to major in computer science. But throughout the whole process, it was very easy to know, okay, this is what this track looks like, this is what other tracks look like, and the process to change within the engineering school is not very difficult. And even if you want to switch out of the engineering school, and I think Maricela can speak more to it, it just requires an extra meeting, I think.
Yeah, so I definitely switched my major multiple times. But and it's totally fine to do that. You don't have to declare your concentration until the end of your sophomore year. That's the exception is for engineering students. If you want to be in the engineering school, you do have to declare by the end of your freshman year. So I actually came in as a chemical and biological engineer, and so I took engineering courses my freshman year, and then I ended up switching out and I went to molecular biology, and then after taking a couple more chemistry classes, I ended up switching my sophomore year into chemistry. But I know those are very similar science focused, but it's also very common to switch from not being in the engineering school. So if you come in and you want to do something and then you realize that you're actually interested in engineering, you can just meet with them, fill out some forms, and go into the engineering school. That's a little more difficult with, they have a lot more requirements in terms of courses. For taking higher level courses, you have to take some before that. But in general, it's very common to switch, and people switch all the time, switching out of the engineering school or switching from humanities to science. It's very common for freshmen and sophomores. So.
Thank you guys. So just we're going to do a little bit of a balancing act here. We've talked about academics here at Princeton, but how do you all balance your academics with, having a healthy, balanced social life, but also kind of how do you do self-care, especially around times like Dean's Date, and coming up for reading period and finals. And also, are there any spaces, that you find that you really go to define that space, whether that be in your dorm or an eating club or other spaces available on campus as well?
Yeah, so I think I can speak to this quite a bit. My freshman year, I came in with the idea that I'm here because of academics and that's what I have to focus on, and I didn't really get involved on campus. And it just isn't good for you because it just places all your happiness weight on your grades, which isn't a good thing to do at Princeton. It's good to try new things, and also be involved on campus. Being in an eating club now is a lot better because I'm the president of an eating club, so I get to administer the eating club and I get to show people what the eating club's about. I get to throw events for people where they're happy, and that really does contribute to just overall well-being. With regards to being busy, that's definitely something that you learn by doing here at Princeton. You very much have to schedule a lot of things. I've had to schedule lunches before just because of how busy the calendar is, but I think that you definitely grow into it. And as far as the eating club goes, I think for most people it's just a space where they can be with their friends and they don't really, they can study there, but they also we have a game room, and we have just the dining room where people can just sit and talk and just forget about the fact that Princeton is an academic institution, but also focus on their social side a bit more.
I think that's a really great thing to bring up. If you could talk a little bit about what I think is a really important topic, like meals here and food plans. Can you give us some background on the eating clubs and maybe what the options are in terms of for underclassmen in terms of dining halls and things like that?
Yeah. Okay. So as an underclassman, I had friends at other institutions, and being from Texas, you really are far from anyone you know if you come to Princeton. So I brought them to Princeton all the time to our dining halls. We have 6 residential colleges, I think, with a few dining halls. And all of my friends say, oh my God, Princeton food is so much better than X school. And it really is. The dining halls are much better than other schools. But by your second year, you start kind of getting tired of the dining halls. So Princeton expands your options. After your second year, you no longer have to be on a meal plan. You can join an eating club, and I'll talk about that a bit later. You can join a co-op, which is a community of students where each member has to cook at least once a night. Or you can go independent, which means you're held accountable for your own meals. As far as the eating club goes, there's 11 of them, and it's our version of Greek life, but it's also a dining option. So each eating club has its own culture, and we also have our own food. And one of the great things about it, I think, is that we're very flexible with student needs. Because we are smaller, we are also able to switch our menus whenever we want. And via student administration, you just have to ask one of the officers, hey, I had an officer come up to me saying, oh, I want white pizza with sauce on Make Your Own Pizza Fridays. And I was like, okay. I talked to the house manager and they bought it, and it was there the very next Friday. Something that the dining halls are a bit slower on, but is definitely possible in meeting club.
So again, as a follow-up, what's that sense of community you feel within the eating clubs or within, just the Princeton community in general? If you guys could kind of just speak a little bit towards that, especially given your sort of varying class years.
I guess with the eating club, I would say that since we have a busy social calendar, we have study breaks every week. We also throw parties. We have we have a spreadsheet where we know who's taking what classes, so we have our friends within the classes. You definitely get to very close with the people. And in a place that can be as busy as Princeton, the one thing you have to do is eat, right? So the fact that we have our dining hall and that dining hall is filled with people that are in your club, you really get close with them because the time that you're eating, you're also talking to them. And meals are really part of I think what centered is social life here at Princeton.
I think I can speak a little bit to kind of the sophomore experience and also the freshman experience before that as well. There are a lot of different opportunities to pick different eating options after sophomore year, but I think by the time you get to sophomore year, you're kind of very settled into the community. And that was something, at least in bringing up the different ways that his friends from universities outside of Princeton respond to Princeton. I think something that I do forget about a lot is just how residential the community at Princeton is. I think last time I checked, it was like 96% of Princeton students stay on campus all 4 years, which means that seniors too are still very much contributing to campus life. I can also say many of the upperclassmen dorms are closer than my residential college Forbes to the rest of the campus. So that just means that you are really here for your 4 years, and a lot of students are making the most of it. So if that means meeting up with friends or meeting new people in the dining hall, they'll do it. So you see a lot of people kind of having that community over eating, and then you also have people eating alone and getting things done. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of go about making the community your own, but the good thing is that everyone's in it.
Great. So I think at this point, it'd be good to sort of think about, we've received a question about what the process of finding a work-study job is like, and are there places that offer, work-study opportunities that work with your class schedules?
Yeah, so I've been in work-study jobs since freshman year. It's kind of part of my financial aid, so I work in the undergraduate chemistry lab window. So when they administer general chemistry classes, they have labs to them. And then they have, like, if they need any equipment or anything, I sit at the window and I give that out to them. So if you haven't required, then you can qualify for work-study jobs. And there's a student employment website that kind of has a list of all on-campus jobs, and then they also have off-campus jobs that are nearby, and they range, like a wide range of different things. If you want to work in a library where you just sit at a desk and then if people come up to you, have questions, you can usually do homework during those jobs, so those are in high demand. And then there's also jobs like tutoring, if you want to tutor Princeton high school students, or if you want to tutor other Princeton students, undergrads. You can do any range of those kinds of things. Also, SAT tutoring is also very common. And then there's also like more administrative type of things where you're kind of an assistant for some people. And then you can also work in the dining hall. So they have student workers in the dining halls that help bring out food, clean up, and all of those different jobs have different levels of commitment. So I like the job that I have because I basically just sit there and I can do homework during it, and I've had it for the past 2.5 years. And then this year I got another job with a student agency called Safeguard, and it's more like you help run events and stuff, because there's all kinds of events happening at Princeton all the time. So they have students kind of stand at the door and make sure that it's Princeton students and stuff. So yeah, it's been manageable. You have to work around your schedule though. So.
And if I may add, Princeton is very good about work study, because they have jobs that you can only apply to if you're work study, and they can only hire you if you're work study. So I think it makes it very easy for people who are on work study. There is also like a wide array of other jobs. I'm a director of a Princeton student agency, the Safeguard agency, and what I do is I manage billing and paying our employees. And one of the things that it allows me to do is it allows me to like get higher pay based on how much the agency makes. So it's kind of like I'm getting to run my own little business within the institution, which is also something very unique to our campus.
I can add a little bit as well, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, of course.
I started a job early freshman year as well. I'm also on work study. And the job that I actually started was through Tiger Call, which is a program that runs through the Princeton Office of Annual Giving, which is connected to the alumni. And it's soliciting gifts, but it's also just keeping in contact with alumni. And so I was actually started freshman year calling alumni on the phone, emailing them, sending different mailings to them, and just having this great contact. And the great part about that job is it is actually at night. And so I was able to, go to class during the day, and then a lot of those shifts are like 7 p.m.-ish. So it was really, really easy to work into my schedule. And it was also a great kind of relevant job to get really cool skills and different experiences out of it that wasn't just, spending time somewhere, but actually having some kind of valuable experience to come from it. And I still do that now. So.
Great. So kind of going on with the experiences that y'all are having with your work study. What about in terms of working with a career center or other advising for your post-Princeton plans? I know that some of you are closer to that than others, but also have you had opportunities to engage in either externships during the academic year or perhaps over the summer? And also what has that advising looked like? Is it through your academic advisor or are there other layers of advising that are helping you for your next steps?
So for careers, I'm the president of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and what I do is I get emails from employers who want to hire Hispanic engineers here at Princeton. And one of the things that amazed me my first year is that I joined this organization, which at the time was a lot smaller. And the organization, the national organization, has a conference each year in a different city. And Princeton paid for me as a freshman who had not really completely declared the engineering department to fly to Seattle. They paid for my flight, my hotel, to go to this conference and get to talk to companies. And my first year, I just talked to a few computer science companies. I told them that I was a freshman, and I ended up getting an internship at Facebook. And I continued with that internship, and I got a return offer, and I interned at Facebook last summer. So there's definitely opportunities, especially if you're within the engineering field. That's my experience, that you can intern at places, and Princeton holds its own career fair where they invite a bunch of companies. They have an engineering-specific career fair where they invite companies looking specifically for engineering students. So there's definitely opportunities there.
And just to add on, so I want to go to medical school after I'm pre-med. So they actually have an entire office for health professions advising, anywhere from medical school to dental school, pharmacy, like everything. And they have people who work there that you can set up meetings with, and they encourage you to meet with them from your freshman year. So I know like one of the advisors pretty well, and I meet with her pretty much every semester before course enrollment to kind of go over my schedule and see if I'm on track. And then they also have a great alumni network, so they can connect you with previous students who have done things, and they can connect you with like different organizations. And they were the ones that actually encouraged me to apply to an abroad program. So last summer I went abroad to India and did some kind of pre-health shadowing a little bit. So that's a great office for any type of pre-health advising.
Yeah, and to a little bit more of generic advising just for the student population at large, there's the Office of International Programs for more opportunities like that one that's abroad. And so within that office, there's opportunities to study abroad during the academic year, but there's also a lot of different Princeton programs that give you the opportunity to go abroad in different ways during the summer. So some of those are classes, but some of them are actually internships. So I actually did that. I participated in the international internship program through that office, and I actually had an internship for 8 weeks in Galway, Ireland. Very random, most random thing I've ever done in my life. Working for Barbaro International Arts Festival for Children, which is a nonprofit children's festival in Galway, Ireland, where I spent 2 months working for their office doing communications, learning how to work in a small nonprofit office, but also getting all of those different international opportunities as well. So not every international opportunity has to be a class. There's also these internships. So there's different ways I think to participate in that. And then of course there's some for the health professions, but also other ones as well. And there's many, many different ranges. That can also be research. I've known people to do that. Or it can be something genuinely as random as a children's book.
Great. So we had a question about affinity spaces and also kind of affinity groups that are available to our students on campus.
Yeah, so I know about, there's Princeton Latinos y Amigos, which is the Pan-Latino organization on campus. And they, at the beginning of every year, they host what is Latinx Heritage Month, which is a month just to celebrate like Latino history, Latino culture. And I know they have Whitman College cooperate in having just a Latino food night. They have also like all sorts of events throughout the month, but also throughout the year they have several study breaks, several events, especially, and they also narrow them down. Like somewhere they have a group called Hermanitas, which is for Latino women who all want to meet together in a space to talk about what it means to be a Latino woman or a Latino woman at Princeton. And every semester they also have a gala and they invite a special speaker. We've had Jorge Ramos, which is the most famous Hispanic news anchor in the United States, come talk to us. We've had Diane Guerrero, which is an actress from Orange is the New Black. So we definitely have like great speakers on campus. And it's just a great experience to also like get to meet other Latinos here in Princeton.
So one of the cool spaces that we have on campus is the Carl A. Field Center. And it's kind of like a place where it sponsors a lot of like the affinity group activities, as well as you can just study there if you want to go there with your friends. But one of the things that I've been doing as a freshman is I'm like an events consultant for the Black Student Union. So I kind of give them like ideas for different events that we could put on. I also help set up events. And the Black Student Union has like, it's kind of like starting a new event every year now where we have a gala. We just had ours a couple of weeks ago. We had like pictures and a speaker and or like a person speaker. We had music, and we had it was a great way to foster community amongst the Black students on campus. We all got dressed up and we danced. It was a great time. But a lot of the things that can happen with like activities like that is that you can find friends who have similar experiences to you, and you can talk about those experiences, and they can end up being ways to network and build another sense of community with a different group of people who in front of you might find in your residential college. For me, so that's been very valuable.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about those affinity spaces and those groups that you're a part of. One group I think is really important to talk about, and I'd love if just one of you could talk about it before we get to our sort of final question, is that what's the QuestBridge sort of network and chapter on campus like? And if students are interested in joining, how can they go about joining it?
Yeah, so I'm actually on the executive board this year, so I can speak a bit to this. So in the past, the Princeton QuestBridge network takes different forms, the Quest Scholars Network for Princeton. But this year, what it's like is a liaison or president applies to QuestBridge directly to become that kind of icon for the year at Princeton. And then you can send applications in to become part of the executive board towards the beginning of the year with them. So this year I'm publicity chair because I was really excited about getting the word out about the new events we were having. And then if you don't want to get involved in that kind of way, all the different events you're available to join. And we do a lot of publicity, a lot of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter kind of things. We email a lot. Yeah, a lot. And we have all these different events. And so that's kind of a way to kind of join the QuestBridge community in that way. So we have different study breaks. We have the National Quest Day that all the chapters in the country take part of. And so we had one of those. We had a giant cake and had a great time with balloons and things like that. So that's kind of the different ways that you can get involved with that. But always, everyone on the executive board and honestly anyone in the QuestBridge community has these different ways to contact each other to just make sure that the community is staying in touch, but also that we're kind of planning for the future to make the Princeton chapter even better.
That's so awesome to hear. As a former Quest scholar, I'm definitely excited to hear that you guys are, continuing the efforts. So just to sort of wrap up, we'd love to hear sort of your perspective on and reflection on your Princeton experience. So if you could, give us each shortly, a piece of advice, sort of looking back, what would that piece of advice be?
I mean, okay, I guess I'll go. I have the least amount of time here of the entire group, but I think that one of the things that I've learned while being here is that you definitely don't have to do everything. There's a lot of things that you can do on campus, and one of the things that you shouldn't do on campus is spread yourself too thin. I've seen a lot of my friends get really burnt out about having so many different things to do. But I think that if you find what you really enjoy doing and just get really good at doing that, then you're going to be much better off than trying to, manage so many different things, because your time and your social life will both suffer as a result.
I would say, I think looking back on a lot of my freshman year, I was plagued by insecurity, much like many people beyond freshman year are. I think especially moving into the university, I was terrified that I wasn't prepared to take on Princeton academics. I truly thought that I was going to be the least prepared of anyone in my classes. I thought I'm going to be the one person in the lecture who can't keep up. And I think the biggest piece of advice I would give myself is you deserve to be here. The admissions counselors who admitted you truly believe and want you to be part of this community. And the quicker that you accept that and move forward, the better off you're going to be. So I would definitely say just not worry less, but I saw this quote on Twitter, worry smaller, because that shouldn't be your worry as you move forward, I think. And I think it's a thing that everyone's going to have to face, but please face it less time than I did.
Yeah, so kind of going off of a similar thing, after being here for 2 years, I would definitely emphasize that you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many resources here, and I'm sure wherever you go, there's opportunities to get help. And part of the reason that I chose Princeton is because it's also a place where you can explore. So I'm a chemistry major, but also now I just decided to get a Latin American Studies certificate, actually like last month. So you can, you know, like change your mind about a lot of things, and it's difficult to kind of like figure out your track. So along the way, I've had a lot of mentors, and I would say that those people have been the most helpful for me, whether it's my friends or professors or just different people who run different extracurricular activities. So don't be afraid to ask for help in every step of the way.
And I guess what I would say is I think 4 years ago when I was watching a similar panel, I was very scared that I'm from Colombia and I live in Texas, so New Jersey didn't sound like the warmest place to me. And also I was close with my family, and you know, having to leave them behind, like 2.3 thousand miles, seemed like a big deal. And I would definitely say to myself, like, not to be afraid to go far. Don't be afraid, because there's like few opportunities like this one. And I would also say, like, when I was looking around, I very much focused on like US News national rankings. And I knew I wanted to be computer science, and I saw, oh, MIT's #1, but Princeton's #8. Why would I go to #8 if I get into #1? And after visiting the schools, you really learn that Princeton will prioritize you as an undergraduate and as a freshman over anybody else on campus, over the professors, over the other upperclassmen. You are the most important person to them. They give us free gear, they give us free shirts, free hats all the time. I have way too much Princeton gear. Princeton loves you more than anyone will.
Great, great. Thank you so much. It's so great to hear that you all have had such a wealth of experiences here, and we're so thankful that you're able to share it with some of our QuestBridge students as well. So this is basically going to be the end of the panel at this point. And again, I just want to thank everyone in attendance. We've really appreciated it. And I do want to say that we're so sorry we weren't able to get to all of your questions, but thankfully our wonderful panelists have given us the okay to share some of their contact information. So we're gonna actually just share the screen right now with you guys. This screen includes our contact information, so the general admissions contact information, as well as the contact information for each of our panelists. So if you feel the need or want to learn a little bit more about what one of our panelists have been doing or going to do, they're more than happy to chat with you. And again, if you have any questions, that you want to direct to us on the admission team, we're more than happy to help you out as well. Again, thank you so much, and we really appreciate you coming.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.